Okay, so hi Beth. I am
Hello.
Sharon's sister, and I'm also a picture book author. But I'm
Great.
here in dual roles. One as a parent of a reluctant reader. So my son has been a reluctant reader forever. He's got two older sisters who are avid readers, and he's the one who does not like to read. I mean, he's a sports guy. So I've tried everything from trying sports oriented books to graphic novels and nothing has hooked him yet. So I was just wondering from a parent's perspective if you have any other suggestions to try and engage him in the reading process.
Um, uh, how old is he?
He is 14, so
He's
he's
14.
actually, yeah, going into high school next year.
And what is it like when you ask him to read? Is it like a big fight? Is it like a stressful thing?
Um, it is if it's required, of course, if it's required reading for school and there's a deadline and he's got, a set of questions he's got to answer for the reading and there's a certain task, then it does become a fight. If it's just, hey Quinn, I have this great this is book and it's about basketball and would you like to read it? Maybe you can read a chapter and I can read a chapter. It's yeah, mom, it's fine, okay. But then it doesn't go any further. He doesn't voluntarily pick it up or anything. So, so I find like if I'm not there actually physically, okay, let's read a chapter, and I'm sitting down with him, then it's a lot of lip service, but no action.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because today's kids have so many other options other than reading that are, entertaining and easy. Reading is hard, actually, especially if, um, you might have an eye issue or dyslexia or whatever. And it's just more work than being entertained on a screen. The reason why I asked about if it was like a fight is because what I found with the book I Hate Reading, it kind of acknowledges like I don't like reading. And once you like acknowledge it, you actually like what this book does is allow the kids to feel like, oh, I'm not alone. And I do, like, other people think that reading is not fun either. And it somehow like puts it all on the table, and so then they're not so resistant to it anymore. But generally that's like elementary kids. Once you have teenagers, that's a kind of a different thing too. I would say that if he's 14 and he's reading when he has to read for school at the minimum, that's probably okay. And then like my kids are now in college, and one of them is actually a screenwriting major. He actually like is sort of doing writing and reading as his college thing. The other one became a computer coder, which is, not a lot of like novel reading, but, they eventually came back to reading. The other thing that I would say is audiobooks count. Audiobooks totally count as reading in my book. The parts of your brains that are being engaged when you're listening to an audiobook are the same parts as that are engaged when you're reading with your eyes. It's just a different input. And some people just way prefer audiobooks. So that might be something that you can try too. And, try also just, if he doesn't like it after 2 chapters, find something else. There's a million books at the library that you can find. So I would try an audiobook and also try acknowledging that he doesn't like it. And that he has no resistance. You're like, yeah, I know it's hard, you don't like it, but you're gonna do it anyways. So
Connie, would you have a question?
Thanks, Beth.
I do. I have a question. Beth, I'm really curious, other than you had a roommate who had an agent, how beneficial was your MFA? How did working on that work for you?
I thought it was really beneficial. The way that my MFA worked was that you had to read a whole lot of books in a month, and just the quantity of books of reading really improved my understanding of what is out there right now in the publishing world. And I think that some of my novels, like the baseball predicting cat, were a little old fashioned. And I really learned, like, you got to be current. You got to be doing what people are doing today. So that was on the reading part of the MFA. And the writing part of the MFA was that, like, we had to produce, I don't know how many pages a month, like 60 pages a month. And you just had to produce it. And that is just really good practice. And having somebody require you to do it is one way to get it done. I don't think that MFA is necessary for everyone. I think they're really expensive. And so I wouldn't, like, you know, take out a loan on my house for it or whatever. Like, if you can afford it, and you want that sort of discipline, you know, it really helped me. On the other hand, there's other ways of getting the practice in. So the other thing is, on the other end of the MFA, the connections are amazing. Like, you know, your other friends. And so that's the other thing. It's sort of like any college, you're kind of paying for the network, which unfortunately is really important in publishing.
Which includes Beth and me.
Yes, and this is a network, right? You could do stuff like this. If you're into children's writing, SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, that's a network. It's an awesome network, and they have great programming. So there's other ways of doing it other than using an MFA. And the other thing is, I would say, you research the MFA program, because there are some that are more have like better networks in the end. What I did when I researched it, I literally looked at the graduates, and then I looked at how many of them actually published books. And I applied to the ones that had the most published graduates. And the one that I went to is Vermont College of Fine Arts, and that has tons and tons of, not everybody who gets an MFA there does publish traditionally, but it had, at the time when I was doing the research, it had the most matches.
And I also
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
And I also have to say that another great way to build a network is to go to writers' conferences. And so I need to plug the Mendocino Coast Writers Conference, which is coming up at the end of July. And I think that you might be able to still register. So it's mcwc.org if you're interested. And I know that maybe a third of everyone here has actually gone or is going.
And actually, writers' conferences like that are basically what you do in an MFA in the low residency part. You kind of like get together and have like a little conference. So that's a really great way of working on your network, working on your writing, and also getting inspired and just like getting new ideas. So, yeah.
Patricia, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I had lived in Bellingham for almost 4 or 5 years.
Great.
So it's kind of nice to meet somebody else from there. And you had mentioned something. Before I left Bellingham, I started a young adult book, and you mentioned something about a society of authors or young adult authors.
Yeah, the name is not really easy. It's the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators. So it's a SCBWI.
Is that also high school young adult, or is that just children? Okay,
yes,
so
it includes everything up through high school. Yeah.
Okay. It includes YA, which technically can go to 44. So I think you
that's true. I read YA.
Okay, Tash, you have a question?
No, actually, I just wanted to mention that I am the Assistant Regional Advisor for the SCBWI in the San Francisco North and East Bay regions. So if you have any questions about how to join SCBWI, just you can email me afterwards, or I can put my email in the chat box.
And I think that I usually disable chat boxes for these just because of the Zoom, whatever they call it, bombing or whatever. But Send me an email if you want Tasha's email, and I will give you Tasha's email. Because you all have my email. Who else?
I don't think
Anybody else have a question? Eric, back to you. Oh, you're on mute, Eric.
Thank you. My wife would love to have a mute button on me. Beth, you seem to have had a split career, you know, the self-published and then the traditional published, except for meeting a roommate that had an agent and made the introduction for you. Was there any real connection or boost to your traditional publishing from the self-publishing? Did one help the other? Was one a hindrance to the other?
That's a great question. I just want to keep on writing. I just want to have the option to keep on coming up with creative things, and self-publishing allows me to do that. Like it for me allowed me to keep saying yes when the publishing industry was saying no. So in a way of just helping me feel more creative, that is a really great thing. I, in the future, will have some books published traditionally and other ones that I will do independently. And I love having that ability to choose. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's called being a hybrid author, and a lot of people are hybrid authors for any number of reasons. But for me, it helped me feel more creative, and the more creative I feel, the better I write. So that's really the reason why I do it.
Any negatives that you experienced from HarperCollins because you're self-published?
Because no, really, I don't feel there were any negatives because I had been or am still self-published.
Okay.
Actually, I was kind of struck by, I mean, we have a really different time right now, but I was kind of struck by how much it's not this magical solution. And it might be because of the COVID thing and like they couldn't set up any in-person events for me, but I sort of felt like there wasn't much of a launch, you know, like there wasn't really that, like as an author, I think that the authors that you see out there succeeding, it's because they're out there writing and marketing their books. It's
Right.
Not just the publisher. So it's not really a magical solution. You know, if you're writing for kids, it does help give that legitimacy for schools and libraries, but you're still going to have to like kind of be the shepherd of your books.